All right, this is part three of a five-part series on truth, goodness, beauty, wisdom, and love. Obviously, today we're doing beauty. Now, last time we spoke about goodness, about the difficult, costly, beautiful work of orienting a life toward what is genuinely worthy. We looked at how goodness reveals itself not only in grand heroic gestures, but in the slow formation of character as well. How it is both an individual journey and a social commitment. And then I ended with a question. As this question is for all of us. What will I give myself to? Giving ourselves to good things, good causes, good virtues sounds noble, and it is. But let me now ask a different kind of question. Will we give ourselves to beauty? Does that sound strange to you? Will we give ourselves to beauty? Think carefully. Perhaps think cautiously when answering that question. We live in an age bombarded with images of beauty in form. And such images are designed to move through us quickly. They're supposed to stimulate us, to provoke us, to sell us on something. But I want us today to consider a beauty of a different sort. Now, in previous sessions, we have sat with Plato, his pupil Aristotle, and the theologian most influenced by the both of them, Thomas Aquinas. And we owe them one more visit today because their thinking about beauty will serve as a necessary guide on our journey. Plato believed that truth, goodness, and beauty were not three separate ideas. They were the three faces of the same reality, and he called them the transcendentals, the highest and most universal qualities of being itself. And to encounter one of them fully, he believed, was to be drawn toward the others. Thomas Aquinas, building on both Plato and Aristotle, gave us the most precise classical definition of beauty. He said beauty requires three things: integritas, which refers to wholeness, the thing being fully what it ought to be, and consonantia, let me say that the Latin way instead of English, consonantia, referring to harmony, the right relationship of parts to each other and to the whole. And then claritas, a kind of radiant self-evidence, a shining through, what we might call presence. So the beauty we are talking about today does not merely please the eye, it illuminates. Something shines through it. The word claritas is the one I really want to emphasize today. As we examine several paintings, I want us to ask, where is the claritas? What is shining through? Fra Angelico painted this Annunciation not for grand public church display, but on the wall of a monk's cell at the convent of San Marco in Florence. A small room where a single friar would sleep and pray. It was painted, in other words, to be a companion to a contemplative life. The angel Gabriel kneels before Mary. Now, yes, Gabriel looks effeminate, but in 15th century Italy, angels were often pictured in art as young and androgynous. Gabriel's wings are strikingly multicolored. Mary's hands are crossed over her chest in a gesture of humble reception. The garden behind them is luminous but spare. Fra Angelico used no dramatic shadow, no theatrical contrast. The light here is even and still, the sort of light that would obtain if time stood still. Aquinas said beauty requires claritas, requires a radiant self-evidence. I believe this painting expresses the beauty of simple faith. It does this by showing what faith looks like from the inside. A person in the act of receiving something they did not earn, could not have anticipated, and perhaps a gift they may have not wanted, for it might be too much for them to bear. And yet we, looking at this, somehow feel that the gift is truly a thing of beauty. There is a kind of beauty that does not really please us so much as confront us. It confronts us with something akin to awe. Our tradition refers to such an encounter as an experience of the sublime. Edmund Burke described the sublime as that which produces a kind of astonishment, in which the mind is so entirely filled with its object that it cannot entertain any other. Some forms of beauty soothe. When such forms express the sublime, the beauty can overwhelm. Both forms of beauty are real and both matter. And I think the greatest art often contains both of them. When Botticelli painted Venus rising from the sea, he was working for the Medici court in Florence, a world intoxicated with ancient philosophy and hungry for the reunification of classical beauty and Christian longing. His Venus is not the Venus of carnal pleasure. She is something stranger. I'd say even more melancholy, more interior. Her face is serene, but not triumphant. She stands on her shell with a quality of shy self-awareness, her golden hair blown sideways by Zephyr, the west wind. For the Neoplatonic thinkers surrounding the Medici family, Venus represented the soul's longing for divine beauty, a beauty that belongs to eternity, of which all earthly beauty is a faint, aching reflection. Botticelli painted her not as an object of desire, but as a mirror held up to the soul. When we look at her, we're really looking at the part of ourselves that remembers something purer, something prior to this world. She is not giving us an answer so much as giving us a direction, an orientation. Now let's compare this Venus to three other depictions of women, and I'm sure they're going to seem quite different at first. In this work by Johannes Vermeer, a young woman stands at a window. One hand is on a ceramic pitcher, the other on the frame of a window. She is about to open it, or maybe she's closing it, and the light falls across her face and her white linen collar with a precision that is almost, well, beautiful, heartbreaking, stunning even. Vermeer liked to paint domestic interiors, women reading letters, women making lace, women pouring milk. For centuries, these paintings were considered pleasant but minor. They were too ordinary. Then the 20th century looked again and recognized that Vermeer was doing something theologically serious. He was insisting that the light falling on an unremarkable woman in an unremarkable room was as worthy of contemplative attention as any altarpiece. I think this is one of the most radical arguments beauty has ever made, that the ordinary is holy, that the particular, this woman's face, this light, this moment, it matters as well. And that our failure to see it is not a failure of information, but a failure of attention. Now compare this work to one like this. I'm showing you this work by Henry Osawa Tanner to make my previous argument more explicit. Tanner was in fact influenced by Dutch masters like Vermeer and their use of light. Both Vermeer and Tanner shine a sacred light on women in such a way as to create their own versions of Venus. Do you see what I mean? Now, here is a 19th century Venus, the wife of artist Claude Monet, as another comparison to Botticelli's Venus. In this work, there is indeed a sort of sacred light, but it doesn't shine on the subject. She is completely in shadow. The light is in the air, infusing the air so that the whole painting emanates a sense of sacred beauty. Let's compare Monet's Venus, for that I'm sure is how he thought of his wife, with Botticelli's. Both beautiful. One on the left, fully visible, surrounded by symbolic and mythological references that clue us in that she represents a heavenly ideal. And the other, fully clothed, face obscured, in shadow, in a completely natural setting. Both of them equally convey beauty, a beauty that goes beyond mere form, reflecting a beauty beyond the physical. Let's return again to the Renaissance, because this period's philosophies and art were so obsessed with the ideal of beauty, higher beauty. Now, Raphael had available to him every technical resource of the high Renaissance: perspective, color, anatomy, light. And what he did with them, especially in his many Madonnas, was create a space in which the entire tradition of human longing for beauty could breathe. In a work like this, we witness Aquinas's consonantia, the rightness of relationship between parts. The two toddlers are in perfect relationship to Mary within a warm, natural setting. Now, nothing here is excessive, but nothing is missing. And the result is that gazing on such a work, we feel what the tradition calls delight. Not simply pleasure, but a recognition. Yes, a recognition that this is sacred beauty. Now, I couldn't discuss a Raphael Madonna without including this one, the Sistine Madonna, housed now in Dresden, Germany. It is considered a pinnacle of high Renaissance art because it masterfully bridges the gap between the beauty of earthly humanity and the beauty of divine perfection. Notice the harmonious composition. Just like in Madonna of the Meadow, Raphael uses a pyramidal structure to group the central figures, creating a sense of perfect balance and stability. This geometric clarity suggests that divine order is inherently beautiful. In his many Madonnas, Raphael captured what contemporaries called a matchless and universal beauty that combined classical Greco-Roman physical ideals with Christian spiritual purity. Let's now consider the beauty of nature. When John Constable exhibited this painting at the Paris Salon of 1824, it caused a sensation. The French painters of the time had never seen clouds painted like this. These clouds were alive. They moved. They cast real shadow. The subject is a hay wain, which is a cart for hauling hay, and it fords a shallow river in Suffolk, England. Dogs wade. A farmer watches. Clouds form in the sky. This is a painting about a summer afternoon that happened 2 centuries ago. Yet we can feel in this moment the temperature of the air, can't we? We can feel the dampness rising from the water, the green gold of the English fields. This is the beauty of specificity. Constable was not painting generic nature. He was painting this unique meadow, this distinct sky, this particular quality of light on this particular afternoon in Suffolk. John Constable kept meteorological notebooks, and he studied clouds the way a theologian studies scripture, because he believed the natural world was not a backdrop, but a language itself, and that to render it faithfully was an act of reverence. Let's move to something different from the East. Hakusai was in his 70s when he created the Great Wave. He had been working for over 50 years. And what he produced in this single woodblock print became one of the most recognized images on Earth, which is itself remarkable, since it was made in a medium that most Western aesthetics had not yet learned to appreciate. The wave towers over tiny boats, its claw-like foam fingers reaching downward. Mount Fuji, the sacred, the permanent, sits small in the distance, dwarfed by the force of the sea. In Japanese aesthetics, there is a concept called mono no aware, the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. The bittersweet awareness of impermanence. The poignant beauty of things that pass. The great wave is a perfect expression of that sensibility. This wave is magnificent. The wave will destroy, but then it will disappear, and the mountain will remain. And the tension between force and stillness, between the momentary and the eternal, is the engine of Hakusai's beauty. It is worth sitting with the fact that this insight, that beauty and impermanence are not opposite but companions. This idea is older than any of our Western traditions. The Japanese had articulated it with precision centuries before the European Romantics discovered it. Let's move back west. The French philosopher Simone Weil wrote that beauty is a snare set by God to catch us. What she meant was that beauty arrests us, stops us in the middle of our self-absorption. And for a moment, we are outside ourselves, attending to something other than our own desires and anxieties. In that moment, she believed something is possible that is not normally possible. Genuine receptivity, the capacity to receive something we did not manufacture and cannot control. That is what Renoir's painting does. It sets a snare. The woman in this landscape is herself bathed in the beauty around her. And if we gaze at a work like this long enough, we too are caught in its beauty, and something in us is changed. Van Gogh painted Starry Night from the window of his room at the Saint Paul de Mausole Asylum in Saint Remy. He was not well. He was never entirely well. And yet, from that window, that room, that life of suffering, he produced a painting that vibrates with a strange and terrible joy. The cypress tree in the foreground, traditionally a symbol of mourning, rises like a dark flame into a sky that swirls and pulses with energy. The village below is quiet. It appears asleep. But the heavens are alive in a way the delight of the world never quite fully expresses, and yet it's pregnant with it nonetheless. Van Gogh looked at the night sky and saw not emptiness, but presence. He saw the universe trembling with something it could barely contain. This here is the beauty of ecstasy, which can barely be distinguished from anguish. This is not an easy beauty. It does not reassure. It insists that the world is more alive than our habits of perception allow us to see. But when we do perceive such aliveness, even from a hospital window, even through the lens of a depressive state, well, it's worth everything. Now, a work like this reflects a pure beauty of sentiment. Frida Kahlo painted this double self-portrait in the year her marriage to Diego Rivera collapsed. Two versions of herself sit side by side. The European Frida in a Victorian dress, her heart exposed and cut, bleeding, and the Mexican Frida in a Tijuana costume. Her whole heart is whole. These two Fridas hold hands. Their hearts are connected. The sky behind them is stormy. The clouds are massive and dark, but the two women are calm. They're not asking for our sympathy. They are showing us, with the precision and courage of a great painter, what the interior life looks like when it refuses to lie. Kahlo did not pretty up her suffering. She looked at it directly and rendered it in paint with extraordinary technical precision and formal inventiveness. And the result is, yes, confrontational, but beautiful in the most demanding sense. Though its subject is troubling, we are compelled to keep looking. It is beautiful precisely because it is true. We can't look away because it insists that even this, even the broken artery, the exposed heart, the stormy sky, deserves to be seen clearly and made into something that endures. This is what the great artists do. They do not give us beauty as an escape from reality. They give us beauty as a deeper entry into it. The poet John Keats, in Ode on a Grecian Urn, said, "Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. Many visitors to the Frick Gallery in New York City consider this work the most beautiful in the collection. It reflects an idea that writer Dostoevsky expressed in his novel The Idiot, that beauty will save the world. The line has been quoted so many times it has nearly lost its force. But he was not speaking naively. He was not saying that pretty things will make difficult things easier, though that may be true. He was saying something more radical and more demanding, that the encounter with genuine beauty, the kind that stops us, that asks something of us, that reveals rather than conceals, it is a moral and spiritual event. It changes the person who undergoes it. Such an encounter with that kind of beauty will open us up. It reminds us that reality is larger, stranger, and more generous than our daily habits of perception allow. Well, I'll ask again, as I did last week in closing, where does all of this leave us? We began these sessions with truth, exploring the possibility that reality is not something we invent, but something we are invited to see. And then we moved to goodness, which we understood as the slow formation of a character capable of recognizing and choosing what is genuinely worthy. And today we have been in the company of beauty, the third great transcendental, the one that Plato believed drew the soul most powerfully towards its source. What I hope is beginning to emerge is not three separate ideas, but one idea seen from three angles. Truth, goodness, and beauty are not separate departments of human experience. They are different ways of encountering the same reality, what I want to call the sacred. To see truly is to see the good, and to choose the good is to participate in something beautiful. And to be arrested by genuine beauty is to be placed, however briefly, in the presence of what is most true and real. Caspar David Friedrich's solitary figure stands before the rising sun or the setting sun, and we do not see her face. We see only her orientation, the direction of her attention. She's not really doing anything. She is not achieving anything. She is simply present, open, attentive, receiving. Friedrich's art insists that the capacity to be moved by beauty, by the vastness of the sky, the quality of dusk light, the strangeness of the world, is not a luxury or an indulgence. It is a form of spiritual seriousness. It is what the ancients called contemplation, the sustained, receptive attention to what is true and good and beautiful.